In January 2014, an American radio station posted this cartoon on Facebook. You may have seen this cartoon before. It's been around for a while. It's easy to laugh, to agree, to click on, like, or share it. This post generated some passionate discussion. Within 5 months, it had received over 3,500 comments, more than 70,000 likes, and was shared over 340,000 times. What can we learn from the collective wisdom of over 3,500 contributors to this educational discussion? Any social researcher would be delighted, though possibly overwhelmed with this much data to shift through with a case study. Some would claim these 3,500 commentators are not qualified to advise on education. Yet, if we believe education of the masses is for everyone, then everyone becomes a stakeholder. If we wish to improve education, possibly the best people to ask are those who felt it failed them. The, at times, poor spelling and grammar used by some commentators, rather than disqualifying them, in some ways reinforces their opinions and insights. So this cartoon identified 3 stakeholders: a child, their parents, and a teacher. As we explore over 160 of the 3,500 comments, we will discover many people believe there are a lot more stakeholders involved. Some help, some hinder. So what can we learn from this cartoon? It's gone from black and white to full colour. We've gone from parents demanding their children explain these bad grades to parents demanding teachers explain these bad grades. We've gone from short, hunchbacked, depressed children to happy, confident children. So, if we look at the collective wisdom of 3,500 people, what do we learn? Do we see the problem? Do we see a solution? Well, someone like Aaron, I'm just here for the comments. And some, they just came back with very simple solutions or responses. Dino, completely agree. Yes, spot on. Absolutely right. This is so true. This is a huge problem. And Gary, well, something is real wrong with this. And Nathan, I see the problem, but not the solution. And Derek, well, now, what's your recommendation on how to solve it? For Linda, they need cameras in the classroom so parents can see how their kids act in class. For Jonah, rip the iPads and iPhones out of their hands, turn off the TV and tell them to do their homework. Some people believe digital age equals a digital divide. For Lewis, what? Looks at the cartoon and says 45 years with the same furniture? Is this all about resources? Angel notices the teacher has a new eraser, and so she gets yelled at for it. Alan comes back with a bit of humour. Why can't we telecommute this meeting? Can't you see we're busy adults here? Email us in the future. Sylvia, without discipline, you have no education. And for James, well, can't do anything to disobedient children. Obviously disobedient children fail their grades. And for Mike, school are a disaster these days. Lack of consistency, discipline and respect. For Todd, there's one thing missing, the paddle. Bring it back to school and the home. Jamie quotes scripture, spare the rod, spoil the child. And Keisha, well, bring back the paddle with the hole in it. And Harry, we need to get back to regular whippings. Desiree believes a good smack never hurt anybody. And Paul, well, he's got a friend publishing a book. When the spanking stopped, all hell broke loose. Christopher shares quite a story. He suspects that most of the people who look back fondly at the good old days fail to recall how miserable they actually were. Christopher, he's a student in the 70s. My 3rd grade teacher used to physically abuse me. He cracked my head against the wall, crushed a rotten apple in my face, and used to hit me on the head with heavy textbooks. I got off lightly compared to some of his victims. For Carol, I don't know why anyone would want to teach. The salary sucks. What an awful way to make a living. And Peter, we don't train our teachers like professionals. What else do you expect? And for Dennis, how can teachers teach if they're worried about their safety and the fact that they darn near make minimum wage? For Mark, however, well, he's a 48-year-old contractor. He's doing training to be a teacher. It'll cost him $30,000 plus the lost income of $200,000, but he wants to make a difference. This cartoon's had a few variations over the years. It even turns up in other languages. As you can see, it's a universal problem. Here's in India. and Israel and Italy and Thailand. For Megan, it's clear. My daughter's D got her in some hot water at home. Not the teacher's problem. She's slacking in school. For Alicia, these days they blame the teachers and not the children. That's the problem. For Santa, it's the student's fault. For Chris, your child is lazy. That's the truth. And for John, if you actually take the time to invest the time in your children's education, you'll discover where the true failure is, and it's almost always the child. For Margaret, the biggest problem we have with most kids is they fully understand their rights, but not their responsibility. For Gary, he believes there's much more complexity than that. Cherry, she believes drugs are a big problem these days. And Bridget, well, she says now a lot of teachers recommend prescription drugs. And for Wok, well, everything is expensive, so it's reduced his quality of life. For Jika, all great empires have collapsed from inside, she believes. But if we wake up and fight against this twisted evil, we may still find a way to a better tomorrow. Everything starts from our own homes. Result, it's the decadence of the whole Western civilization is the problem. Whereas Manuel comes back and says, no, this has no relevance to this topic. But Kurt, that's the moral decay of the American family. And teachers are a noble class of people doing a thankless job. For Victor, he believes people these days just share a house. No one eats together, prays together. We need to get back to a slower lifestyle. For Debbie, she says, look at the kid on the Today side. He's got a smirk on his face from ear to ear, because kids like that know that they can do whatever they want. Accountability is what's missing. Whereas for Margaret, respect is what's missing. Schools and the world would be a better place. For Leanne, no respect for teachers. No wonder there are so few. And for Kerry, well, she heard on the radio that they're planning not to call teachers sir and miss. Some people want first names. Absolutely ridiculous, she says. Yeah, says Danielle. We're not teaching kids respect. We're educating spoilt little lazy brats. But Canny comes back with an interesting solution. If you don't teach your kids to respect authority, especially the President of the United States of America, that trickles down to themselves. It all begins with the parents. For Molly, when I started school, we all stood up when the teacher entered the room. And for me, that's the truth. I feel so bad for teachers nowadays. And Destiny, well, I'm a teacher. Before you badmouth teachers, I suggest you try your hand at teaching. For Sean, well, I feel sorry for teachers these days. They care more than they did when I was in school. And for Carol, she's a retired teacher, and she's frustrated. There were children failing because they would not do the work, and yet they ended up with good grades. What does this teach the children? And Cheryl come back, we can't give below a 60 on anything. Don't turn it in, 60. Write down completely irrelevant answers, 60. It's ridiculous. I feel sorry for the employers of some of the kids down the road. For Helen, she was told never to give the captain of the football team a bad grade. And for Bonnie, standardised testing should be thrown out the window. And for Betty, the problem is an educational system based on grading. And for Gilly, 2 words, sum it up. Standardised testing. And for Sue, well, she believes kids are being taught how to pass the class, not taught the subject. And for Amber, she says, why are we putting more focus on grades than on learning? She says, I spent more time in high school studying to get A's so my report card looked good. But I couldn't tell you much of what I learned. And Rory, she asks, please tell children everywhere that when they begin in school that they're there to learn how to learn, to train their brains to be able to accomplish whatever they decide to put their minds to. And for Kirsten, she's got quite a story. And because the academic system isn't for everyone. She says, I certainly learned and understood a lot more when I left school at 16. And now, love learning, as I know how I like to learn. They make it sound so simple. Get grades, do uni, get a good job. But we all know that that is not how it goes at the best of times for new graduates. And they always wonder why. Because no one told them life is not a walk in the park with or without an education. For Kenneth, he says yes, teachers don't do their jobs. And Patrick, well, he used to have the utmost respect for teachers. But I have absolutely no sympathy for the modern socialist, eco-Nazi, liberal, globalist, agenda-driven, brainwashing teachers in the schools. For Nick, well, how can a nation thrive with teachers who aren't any smarter than the students themselves? And for James, the problem is that nowadays teachers are more ignorant and irresponsible than the kids. For Sean, when my son asks his teacher for help and doesn't get the help, then she's not doing what she's paid to do. The teacher's job is to teach. Jenna, some teachers just suck. Stop only blaming the parents. When we bring a problem to your attention, fix it. They don't even let the kids here have recess anymore. They play for 20 minutes on Friday after lunch only if it's warm, and they have been angels all week. This is absurd. Sandra, well, when the whole class is failing a subject in the class, it's the teacher's fault. And when the teachers are negative all the time, it makes kids not like school. They don't try. My kids love school, but some days they don't because of the teacher. I know it's hard to be a teacher, so I don't yell at them about grades. I ask, what can we do to fix the problem? And Chloe, well, she's had teachers who didn't attempt to teach us and just lecture us, and teachers who explicitly told us they didn't know what they were doing. I can confidently say there are some very bad teachers in this system. For Kathy, well, she had a maths teacher who called her an idiot, a loser, stupid, said I'll end up flipping burgers at McDonald's. When she complained to the principal, his hands were tied. It's up to the administration. She says it should be easy to get rid of horrible teachers. And Veronica, well, sometimes you have lazy teachers who don't have time to teach. I've had them. Every child has. And Darby, well, a lot of teachers are too lazy to teach us. And Mark, I've had my fair share of lazy teachers. Daniel asks, I always ask the question, who should work harder in a classroom, the students or the teacher? There was a time when it was the students, but now it is the teacher. Jordan, I see the problem. In 1969, the teacher wasn't held responsible for poor teaching. For Joe, it's too bad there are a great number of teachers that hate their job, show no passion teaching, and watch kids struggle to learn with no intervention. Kathy, oh well, she says sorry, but I'm the parent blaming the teachers. Actually, it's a ridiculous curriculum nowadays, and she goes on and tells her story. For Herman, it's all about the kids' homework. And Kristen, well, she sees a young, inexperienced teacher. My younger kids come home with so much homework, you would think I was the teacher. They need to focus more on our homework. Well, I didn't go to school to teach kids. What do they learn at school all day? And for Carla, well, she says parents can't even figure out the homework these days. For Peter, he's a teacher himself, but he was told that if a child disrupted my lesson, it's because my lesson wasn't interesting enough. Salia, I'm a high school teacher. Believe me, this picture sums up the entire situation perfectly. And Jenna, well, they've even got this cartoon up in their staff room. For James, he's a teacher. I've encountered only very few parents that actually try to blame their kids' bad grades on the teacher. More parents and kids simply don't seem to care. To Sonny, well, he's been teaching 12 years and he hates it when the admin backs up the parents. Herman has the same experience in Netherlands. Well, this teacher, after 40 years, has escaped the classroom to the art room because I'm too old to be polite to stupid parents. What do you see here? Well, some Frederick says, what's funny is the kid on the left is most likely the dad on the right. Tascala agrees. The kid in the first picture is the parent in the second picture. So the parent's behaviour in the first picture taught the kid to hate teachers. So now his kid is suffering because of his perspective on teachers. For Greg, it's a result of 40 years of liberal education and self-esteem building. And John agrees. At least each kid received a participation trophy to massage their self-esteem. And Stacey, well, she sees parents that always tell their children they're perfect, don't make mistakes, and always cater and clean up. Let them deal with the consequences of their own actions. And Jordan, shouldn't that kid be morbidly obese? For Mark, state schools have too many children in each classroom, which means quiet kids are left to their own devices. the best way that kids need to be taught is usually on a one-to-one basis. And he also recognises the breakup of the family. Rodney Rice, he sees the problem, the teacher's cleavage. Matthew agrees. You're all missing it. The teacher in the Today picture is a blonde. And Adam, yeah, that teacher's shirt is too low cut. Teachers need to look professional. And Alex, must be that today the teachers are smoking hot blondes. Anna adds a bit more serious tone. She says, underqualified teachers. Teachers used to dress as if they were going to an office. Today teachers dress practically like street walkers. She suggests uniforms for the kids and potentially for the teachers. Michael, he just believes we start at far too young an age, education. Amazing, the education system's a fault. Nobody understands it. Education failed in both 1969 and today. And James, they don't seem to have lesson plans anymore. And this from a child that finished in 2011 and thinks it's got worse since. But David, well, he's left the classroom teaching up to 6 years. And he's gone to tutoring. And the joy I get from that is a reason I went into teaching. For Audrey, the problem, it's bullying. For Tom, well, it's toilet training. And for Carol, it's politically correct people. Danny, well, he recognises that parents today have severe anger management issues. He also thinks the classroom today has blue sky walls. They'll probably distract the children. And the report card is pink. It's not supposed to be pink, thinks Danny. But Cheryl, well, there might be 25 different learning styles in a classroom. And for Steve, well, he believes children learn from example. Well, he goes on and explains that in the 60s, the parents were talking about the evils of pot while keeping a well-stocked liquor cabinet. Then he goes on and makes the generalizations. All religious leaders are hypocrites. All politicians are corrupt. No wonder our children are confused and struggling. For Susan, education took a nosedive when the government got involved. And unions are also a big problem. For Deborah, I think the problem lies with the government. Manuel comes back. You're funny, Deborah. And Janice, hit the nail right in the head. How did we let this happen? Go paddle the big guys who changed the rules. I'm not sure who Janice thinks the big guys are. And for Mark, well, he's got lots to say. But basically comes down to the bureaucracy of our bloated, political, entangled, unionised, liberalised, dumbed-down system is in fact completely to blame. And he's got the statistics to back it up. For Rick, the problem is that adults don't want to take responsibility for their children not doing well in school and expect our school system to raise our children. For Marlene, it's the government taking everything over. And for Justice, the problem is the education system is broken. Kids aren't learning anything that would portray to their future careers. For Vincent, well, it's boring. Get creative and fun and explore. You can't explore or learn too much inside of a large brick building. And for Carl, well, the problem is state-controlled curriculum and propaganda, enslaving and indoctrinating our children to be left-brain zombies. And for Janine, well, these little princesses are entering the workforce. They're completely unprepared for the corporate world. For Audrey, her daughter has severe dyslexia. Before she was diagnosed, the teachers were blaming me because she couldn't read. I probably spent more time working with her than any other parent in the class. And Alexander, he's a 17-year-old with dyslexia, and he says, I'm not about to let school stop me because I can do anything. Abdul, he leaves missing the point. It's the parents' fault. And Ben, it's the parents are looking for someone to blame. And Logan, no teacher can undo the damage of bad parenting. And Jacinta, we have obedient parents to demanding children. And Christopher, parents, they want to be friends with their kids. Mohammed, too many parents refuse to believe that their child is not Einstein's clone. For Laurie, Johnny won't read, Johnny won't do maths. Students are learners. Johnny isn't a learner because it's not enforced in his home. And Linda, it all starts at home. As she asks us to pray for the children, but also pray for America's parents. Helicopter parents again. Aletha saw it at the play centre yesterday. And Lan, well, she says stop trying to be their friends and be parents. Anita brings in research. has shown that 50% of a child's success in school is due to parents. Matthias, well, it's easy. Stupid parents, stupid kids. Really makes it a question of why do we bother with education. And Dennis, well, after 8 years, the parents were more of a problem than the kids. Leslie, she just reminds us, yelling solves nothing. And Diane, a huge percentage of parents feel that when their child enters school, all responsibility for learning, discipline and behaviour falls to the teachers and staff. And Joanne, well, she says that the number of parents contracting teachers this week at their school, as we begin the last of the fourth quarter, wanting special attention to move their child from a failing grade to a passing grade, has been eye-opening. Where were they for the last 14 weeks? We have 3 weeks left in finals. A little late for a turnaround. My heat questions. If the Today side was accurate, there would only be one parent. And Susan, well, having both parents working is not a good reason. It's an excuse for being an absentee parent. For Robert, the problem started when both the parents had to work to make it in this country. And Patty, it all began when parents went to work. Teachers have no time to teach effectively anymore. Their responsibilities are overwhelming, and the parents would just as soon get the teacher fired or disciplined for not teaching the curriculum. It's impossible when 15 of the 24 students you have in a class are ADHD or disrespectful brats. In this, he believes kids are spoiled and parents are ignorant. Okay, well, if the parents do turn up at all, so at least this cartoon shows parents turning up. And Shannon agrees. Unfortunately, some of us can't get a parent to show up for anything. Stephen, well, he got his ass kicked if I had bad grades, and my parents had the right to it. I'm happy because of that. What I am now and achieved what I have achieved. I'm very happy with that. So I'm very grateful to my parents and my teachers. And mum of a teenage boy, his school is fantastic. And Sarah, well, I personally feel very blessed to be living in a country that even allows education. And for Carol, we don't want the pendulum to swing back to how things were in 1969. Things were not as rosy then as the cartoon would suggest. And Josh, well, I'd rather have a generation of children who trust their parents than one that is in fear of them. And March, well, Rosie, well, I remember one time in 1967, my dad sent my mum up to school because of a bad grade, and believe me, the teacher was not the one they blamed. I was reprimanded right there and there in front of my teacher by my parents. No more problem from me. Got a scholarship to college from that same teacher. Catherine, her advice, parents need to parent. Teachers need to teach, and kids need to listen. For Judy, there shouldn't be sides. They need to work together for the child's sake. And for Peter, well, he feels that problems with the children immediately should be shared with parents. And teachers need feedback on what works and what doesn't. It's cooperation. For Carol, she believes the majority of students don't do homework or come to school rested. For Bernadette, it's a three-way thing. Children, parents and teachers. When everyone works for the good of the child, then it's inevitable. All will flourish and thrive. Marina, she believes education is a team effort. Otherwise, it's just a blame game. For Julia, she believes it takes a village to raise a child. Others come back. I homeschool because I've seen the village and I don't want it raising my children. For Diane, approaches are wrong. If there are students falling behind, it's up to the parents to have them get the help they need to catch up with the rest of the class. For Lavinia, as a parent I have to say the old school ways are best. There's a fine mix you need between old and new. Be creative with the punishment, but punish. Sit with your kids daily with homework. I go through the book bags, email teachers, check graded assignments online, then put that report to know where my kids need help. They need help, I get a tutor. Education is too important to be lazy. We have 18 years to mould these kids. Take the time to do it right. So what about you? What do you think? Who else are the relevant stakeholders missing from this cartoon? There are classmates. Is he sitting at the wrong table or mixing with the wrong crowd? Does he have an undiagnosed hearing or sight problem? What's the ratio between male and female teachers? Is the feminisation of the teaching profession especially in early education, making it harder for boys to be engaged in school life? Is the boy seeing a counsellor? Or should he? Should the parents be seeing a counsellor? Are the school board aware of the concerns of parents and teachers? There are actually some encouraging aspects to this cartoon. The parents were interested enough to actually turn up at the school. They turned up as a couple. The parents had read their child's report, or we assume they have. And the parents spoke to the actual teacher, rather than other parents in a car park, online via Facebook, or blasting the principal via email. As a parent, are you willing to ask the question, what is education? Some of these commentators would say that good grades doesn't necessarily equal good education. As a parent, what involvement do you want in the education of your child? If you choose free, government-supplied education, would or should your expectations be any different to those parents who choose to pay low, medium or high levels of school fees for private education? By directly rather than indirectly paying for something, do our rights as a consumer change? Is education a service to be consumed, evaluated, critiqued, complained about? Is a consumer mentality applied to education part of the problem? Some parents do choose to homeschool. For them, the role of teacher and parent are one. There is no one to yell at or blame, nor potentially surprises at report time. These Facebook commentators reveal that there are many opinions and potential people to blame. Yet the most encouraging, proactive and hopeful stories involve those where parents have actively partnered with the teachers and school. It is important you consider who you want to work with in the education of your child and how to ensure they are suitable and equipped for the task. Education, it's worth thinking about.